Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's Passion to Profession podcast. Very excited that you're listening or watching right now because we have the wonderful host here, Oliver Bruce. Now, if you don't know Oliver, he is the host of the wonderful podcast Success is in the Mind. And this is all about, well, it really shines the light of real world entrepreneurial stories about the hopes, fears, triumphs, and disasters of that whole journey when we live in this world of idealism, what is really going on. So when Oliver was at university, he founded PinPointMedia with the vision to make media accessible to all. So I know we're going to learn a lot about mindset and how that feeds into success with your passion business. So Oliver, how did I do? Is there anything I missed on your intro there?
No, Dan, you did it pretty well. I can leave now. Thanks very much for having me on. I will. I'll speak to you guys soon.
Thanks, everybody. That was the Passion to Profession podcast.
Very good.
Thank you. So first of all, tell us about Successes in the Mind. What's the idea behind the show?
So Successes in the Mind was really a brainchild during the pandemic when I was kind of sat at my home office kind of thinking, there's nothing really out there that showcases, in essence, what entrepreneurs have to go through. Yes, there's stuff whereby you've cashed out and you've sold your business or whatever, and that's fine, and that is inspirational, but actually there's nothing that really captures the market from a really startup point of view. So quite literally, a lot of, some of the people that have joined us on the podcast have just come out of university. They are just starting their business. We've only spoken to a few who've been in business for probably more than 10 years. The rest of them have all been in business for all of about 18 months to maybe 3-4 years. So quite diverse, but it really captures the real startup mentality.
And what have been the key things that you've learned about the experiences of that first crucial 18 months or 3 years?
I've learned that actually a lot of people that go into business are fairly naive, and that is actually why they succeed, because actually they don't think necessarily this might not work. They just go, well, what's the worst that could happen? And actually, I think it's that mentality which really has meant a lot of the people on the podcast have actually succeeded because they just simply don't have that fear factor.
Okay, that's so interesting. And then, of course, the devil's advocate is, okay, well, that sounds good, Oliver, but I've got the fear. How do I overcome that big mental blocker?
People who have the fear, that's not a bad thing, right? Okay, that obviously means that you're more measured. It's just a different personality, and maybe you'll go into starting your business in a more measured and methodical way, rather than essentially, as Branson would say, screwing it and just doing it. So I think there's multiple different people that can go into business. I think anybody can go into business, but I think if you had to take a cross section of the people that I've personally had on the show, a lot of them have just kind of gone, well, we'll just crack on and see what happens.
Yeah, I love that, and that naivety is a gift if you have it, and if you don't, then go out and learn what you need to learn to take that step you want to take, right?
Yeah.
You've been through this journey. You started PinPointMedia, out of university, and I'm sure you've learned a lot. I'm sure you've made a whole ton of mistakes on that journey. What would you do differently if you could speak to yourself back then?
What would I do differently? I'd make sure that I had a very good team around me from day one. So it's difficult, I suppose, when starting a business, if you're bootstrapping it, to really hire good people from day one. A lot of the time it's you going out there with your vision, trying to make that happen. In hindsight, I think we could have grown a lot quicker had I had a management team or people that actually can assist me with my weaknesses, for instance. And a lot of the people actually that starts unicorns or businesses that do grow pretty quickly, they have investment, they have the money to be able to put a management team around them. Even if that was just a business partner, I think that would have helped back then. Lo and behold, that didn't happen. However, in hindsight, I think that's what I'd have done.
That's interesting. Did you know what your weaknesses were when you first started?
No, I kind of do now, but I didn't back then. And I suppose, Dan, I was at university, right? So yeah. I kind of didn't have anything to lose. And I suppose that goes back to that naive aspect in terms of just going, well, I might just lose my degree, but really, what difference does that make to me? If I knew that I was going to, for instance, fail because I was bad at managing or fail because I was bad at finance, that would have been a weakness for me. And that would have then obviously stimulated me to go and hire someone who was better than me at doing that. But for the first 12 months or so, it was me driving around the country with a camera that I borrowed from university, just filming things and editing it. And, it worked well back then. But, the first person I hired was a filmmaker who turned out to be better than I was.
I love that. I'm all about like hiring people better than me. If I was doing that job, I don't want to find someone who I can like, teach them my wisdom. I want them to already be better than me, because then they're going to level the whole thing up, right?
Absolutely. I completely agree. I mean, there's no point in having a company full of people that you're better than. And I don't think really any entrepreneur is better than their team, frankly, because they're the team of the ones that make them, essentially, right? The entrepreneur takes the risks, comes up with some of the ideas. Sometimes there's a bit of pushback on them, but actually they're the driving force. They're the leader. They're the one with the vision. The people that actually make it happen are those that you have around you. And I think that's the importance of having a team.
Mm. You've spoken to a lot of entrepreneurs around mindset, right? Because our community, the listeners, those who are here right now listening with us, a lot of them are gonna be struggling with maybe imposter syndrome. How do I put something out there? Am I really good enough? Am I worth? How can I charge money? Am I really worth that? I'm sure a lot of people relate to that. What have you learned around mindset from the people making progress with their own business?
Everybody is worth what you feel you're worth, okay? So for instance, if you feel that you're worth $1 million, you'll be worth $1 million. Someone might tell you that you're not. Screw them, carry on. Frankly, when I'm going and selling something, everybody will have some kind of net value that they want to charge themselves out for. And yes, as you grow a business, you'll be able to work out the value based on what your overheads are. But when you're starting in business, you really have to kind of go, so it's just me here. What would I pay for myself? And if you wouldn't pay much, then, don't charge much, but keep incrementally putting that price up until you get to a threshold whereby actually people won't pay for it, because actually it's just not the market price. Whereas actually, if they keep paying for it, put it up by 10% every month or whatever that might be, eventually the market will tell you what your net value should be. And that is what you should start. Essentially, that is what you should run with at that point. It will change as you grow. I get that. But in terms of starting a business, the imposter syndrome kind of solution would be to start at a price you feel you're worth and slowly incrementally raise that until you find out what the market value is.
Did you have people around you questioning whether it was the right decision, whether you could do it?
I probably, but because I ignored them, the answer to that is no. I should have gone through university properly. I should have been somebody that studied. I didn't study as hard as I probably should have done. But again, I'm dyslexic and dyspraxic, so I got bored, right? So I have a very, very short attention span when I'm not enjoying things. And I think that for me is what kind of kicked me into gear in business. I wasn't enjoying the essays. I wasn't enjoying parts of university, apart from the parties. They were good fun. And I just started a business because I enjoyed it. I didn't mean it to be a business. It was a complete accident. I didn't go into it wanting to grow a company. In all honesty, what I wanted to do was to start in a career which was television and media, and just quite by chance happened to start a company in the doing so. There was no strategy to start a business. But I suppose that's a passion, right? Passion to profession.
Absolutely right. And we're back on brand. Thank you so much, Oliver. When you faced business, like challenges, setbacks, things that seem in the moment insurmountable, how do you look at overcoming that, or how do you look at dealing with that and not just being paralyzed by it?
I suppose there's always an end goal, right? So you might wake up in the morning and you might have, and I did actually, yesterday was a really crap day. There was just all the stuff that gets thrown at you. We reopened some of the offices and people started coming in, and you get questions that you normally would have over Zoom and you could ignore them during the pandemic. But arguably, the way that I get over that is by looking at actually, okay, what does next week hold? What does the week after hold? What do I need to do just to get through this? As bad as today might be, what does tomorrow look like? Because, and I hate to use kind of catchphrases and analogies and buzzwords and things like that, but you kind of have to have your bad days to know what a good day is. I mean, it is kind of as simple as that, right? If you have good days every day, how do you know when something's gone wrong?
Yeah, I like the saying. I love all of this cheesy stuff, but I like the saying that you'll never know what it means to be warm unless a part of you is cold. And that's so true.
It also works. It also works. It's like, yeah. I've not heard that one, but it works just as well as you got to have your good days and have your bad days and have your good days.
Yeah, I'm quite often walking home thinking, I'm freezing, so I'm going to really appreciate being warm. You know, you
Do you
need
know,
a,
it's funny you
you
say
need a
that
bit
because
of,
I was in a bar having a substantial meal only the other day, and it was a kind of outdoor kind of marquee, and I knew it was going to be cold in the evening, and I was like, I'm just going to get a bit colder before I enjoy the warmth and put my jacket on, just so I can feel the benefit.
there you go.
And you're absolutely right. You do have to get cold to know what being warm's like.
There you go. So you've interviewed all of these people
Yeah.
who are relatively early in their growth, and I think that something that can happen when people listen to these like inspirational podcasts, or they watch inspirational content, is they look at the world around them, and they say, well, everyone's successful other than me, everyone's happy other than me, and everyone's further ahead than me, and everyone's smarter than me. How do you balance this thing of, you know, helping people to inspire them that they can get further, but also grounding yourself and them that, you know, there's
Yeah.
challenges we all face?
It is difficult, right? I suppose it's kind of, well, what does success look like? And it is different to everybody. But the way that I do it, and I can really only base it on the way that I manage it, is I set myself goals. So however big or however small those goals might be, I will set myself milestones, be that, a daily milestone, a monthly milestone, a yearly milestone, or whatever. And I kind of base my achievements on that. So, when I'm 18, by the time I'm 25, I want to have this. And now I'm 27, by the time I'm 30, well, what do I want to have? And that might be material. It might be satisfactory in terms of you're happy with what you've got, self-satisfaction to a certain extent. But that is how I kind of manage and gauge my success is based on milestones, and it doesn't have to be monetary, and it doesn't have to be aesthetic. It can be anything, but I think it's important to have some kind of benchmark, because when there's other people out there making billions of pounds or driving fast cars or whatever, maybe I don't want that. Maybe all I want to do is be happy in my relationship, and that is my benchmark. And once I've got there, I've succeeded.
Can you share any of your current goals?
Can I share any of my? There's a lot happening next year, actually. We're looking to double in size by the end of 21. So we're going through, and this airs in December. Yeah. So in January, we will be going through a complete rebrand. We're going to be hiring a lot of staff next year. We're opening up either in Manchester or London. We're not quite sure yet in terms of a second office. But everything, this old brand here, well, I say it's old, it's current now, but it will change. You probably can't see it, but it'll change in January. So my goal is by the end of 2021 to have at least doubled in size or given it a damn good go. And if we haven't given it a damn good go, then we've obviously not succeeded.
Yeah, another good analogy I like is leave it all on the field, So you don't want to finish the game having still got energy left and whatever. You want to give it everything. And if you still lose the match, then that's fine, but you've left it all on the field.
How about fail fast? Failing fast is key, because there's no point in plumbing, be it cash, time, mental, whatever, health into it, and failing slowly. If you're going to fail fast. Similar analogy.
Yeah, absolutely right. And how do you, out of interest, think about when you say double the business? Are you thinking about revenue, number of customers, number of in the team? What is that for you?
So in terms of the double, well, it's doubling the staffing, right? So it's not doubling the clientele or anything like that. It's working with them in a more in-depth way. Granted, bringing in new clients, that's fine, but it is making sure our team is at least twice the size. That does coincide with a revenue increase, granted, but what we're doing in terms of the business next year is changing quite a lot of the service offerings, and actually changing the way that we both market the business and indeed what we do with our clients. So that, quite by definition, will mean we have to have a number of other people join the business that we don't necessarily need to have now. So it will just quite naturally grow in size and grow quite quickly in size over the next 12 months. But yeah, that'd be how we measure it, not necessarily on clients.
Cool. Yeah. Good to know. So what are the two more questions, if that's all right, because I'm just so interested.
Yeah, no worries.
What would be like big mistakes that either you yourself have made or you've seen guests on your show have made, because people in our community, those who are listening right now, they may be quite early on. And one of my big goals is that I want to help people avoid mistakes that cost them time and money. What can you help people avoid?
If it doesn't feel right, don't do it, in essence. So don't talk yourself into doing something just because you feel it is the right thing to do. So if for instance, there's a hire and you're supposed to be hiring this person, it's going to cost you £50,000. And, in theory, your gut or you feel like it's not the right thing to do, but actually you kind of aren't sure. And you think, actually, if I take them on, it might be all right. The fact of the matter is, if you think that way, it's probably not the right thing to do. I've been there. I've done it. I've kind of gone, I don't feel comfortable doing this, but it looks like the right thing to do. So I'm going to kind of do it. Massive regret. Never works. Never. Or at least it hasn't worked in my 7 years in business.
Yeah, I can echo that as well. 100%. Especially around hiring team, like the gut instinct that's been evolved over millions of years is there for a reason. I would say I've also made bad decisions that my gut instinct said are good, so I would say it's not 100% foolproof, but usually when your gut is saying, hey, there's something not quite right here, usually it's onto something.
I think, caveat it, Dan. It's, don't always go with your gut. You could be having some sort of, claims against you when they claim that they've lost their house because they went with their gut because it was the right thing to do. You're absolutely right. Sometimes it's the right thing to do. More often than not, it's the right thing to do. But don't always rely on it.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Oliver. I know that the people listening will have learned so much and really enjoyed the conversation and taken a lot from it. I know I have myself. So thank you so much for the time. Where can people learn more about you? Where can they follow you?
Okay, so for me, if you want to head over to LinkedIn, Oliver Bruce Online is my username there. I won't give you my password. In terms of the podcast, you can go over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, any mainstream podcast streaming service. Type in Successes in the Mind, and you'll find me and a number of other entrepreneurs that I've interviewed there. And again, the business is PinPointMedia.co.uk for all your content needs. So there you go, Dan. Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's been excellent.
Of course. Thank you. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. Thank you for watching. That's another episode of Passion to Profession, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.